And wrap. Okay, good to see you guys.
Thank you so much. It was so great.
We'll
see you next month.
See you later. Okay, bye. Oh, sweet Jesus on a Ritz cracker, Courtney.
I mean,
come on. You know it's bad when the highlight of my week is going to the dental clinic at Sydenham Hospital. Shout out to Sydenham Hospital. Really nice people.
Yeah.
But that's the highlight of my week.
You know, it has gotten, well, first of all, we're back. It's ImmaLetYouFinish.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Oh, by the way, yes.
It's us. Courtney and Amy.
In case you thought you randomly fell on a call.
Let's just get it out of the way right now. Okay, listen, guys. Early voting starts October 24th here in New York. I know a lot of my friends across the country I've seen have already early voted. All of our listeners, again, please vote. Vote early. If you're mailing in ballots, I mean, I'd love if you would drop them off at a ballot box or at your Board of Elections. Or if not, mail them today. Do not wait. But go in person if you can. And I know in New York, Amy and I are voting early.
Yeah.
Everybody, we need to vote like your life depends on it. And it's up and down the ticket. Remember, you're angry about what happened with Breonna Taylor. Remember, all of those positions of people like the AG, those are elected positions. So your local races and those small races and your mayoral races and your city council races, those count in your neighborhoods. All the things that you're standing in the street and you're marching for, it's not the president. It's those races that come that people don't show up for. So vote.
Yeah, and in New York, we don't have Senate, Council, Congressman, but everything else is up for grabs this year. Everything.
And it's important. So read up and listen. I think that both sides have been terrible, right? I think that the Democrats and the Republicans they've done nothing but fight and not really done anything for the people. There are a lot of new young people. Young people are the answer. Older people are stuck on their sides and they're the ones with their flag planted in the ground. You young people, you see some new people trying to come in and you hear their voice and it sounds a lot like your voice and where you want this country to go, give them a shot. We don't need
unless you're a young Republican and don't vote for them. Sorry.
But can you imagine, Amy, any of the jobs that you have being like, all right, I have a new boss. I don't like him, so I'm not going to do my job for years. Like, who gets to do that except our Congress? We don't like this one, so we won't do our job. It's like, I don't know anyone. I wish I was allowed to be able to, on each job, being like, I don't like these new motherfuckers that are running the department, so I'm just not going to do anything.
All you need to know about the Republicans, and then we'll shift on to some, is that, we'll finish up, is that rather than pass a stimulus plan, they'd rather get some fucking religious fanatic in on the Supreme Court. That's their priority.
And one more thing.
And I don't like the fact that her name is Amy, and I don't like the fact that fucking bitch in the park who called the cops. Speaking as the normal, good Amy, I resent this.
Right.
Continue, Courtney. I'm sorry.
Can we just that first of all, and can Republicans stop acting like they own fucking religion? That's all I'm gonna say. When did it come? I'm sorry. I live in Harlem. There's a church on every corner, and they're all full. You guys do not own religion. Stop acting like, they're attacking her religion. Like, there's no religious Democrats. There's no religious independent. Listen, I know a lot of women who've had abortions, and let me just say this. I've gone with some friends. There's no box on the form that says Republican or Democrat. That's all I'm going to say on that. So,
well, I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Real talk. It's like, okay.
They just want to know if you have insurance and someone to pick you up afterwards.
I mean, they're not being like, so did you vote for Ronald Reagan?
It's 9:30 in the morning. I don't want to talk about why I'm going to hell.
You know what we are going to talk? Well, we are a little bit because we're going to talk about our good buddy Jeffrey Toobing.
Okay, hold on. All right, first off, I read this funniest thing that Toobing has now become a verb. I'm tubing. Right. So I really think All right, here's, to quote Courtney, here's what I want to say about this. All right, so Jeffrey Toobin, who is a very respected lawyer, legal expert, a really good author. I mean, seriously, he's very funny, he's very respected, he's a commentator, mainly for CNN, but he's somebody who has, you know, I mean, he's the real deal, he's a good guy. All right, so he was called, it's unclear whether there were people, basically he thought he was off a Zoom call and he starts jerking off. They're saying he was jerking off. Here is my question, Courtney, speaking for the sane women of America.
Okay.
Really? You can't get, when it was like, all these guys on Facebook, well, you know, these things happen. No, they do not.
Yes, actually they do. Here's the thing. Okay, and this is what I think happened. You're using your same computer for everything. Like, and sometimes it's a stress reliever. Like, for women, like, y'all think of masturbation, it's a whole different process for a woman in that regard. For us, sometimes it's like, oh, God, it's just a stress reliever, and you're just like, you know what, let me just. So you're using the same computer, and he probably thought he was off. He's going to be looking at the computer because that's where whatever he's using to stimulate him is playing on the computer. So I can see where people would think, you know, that he might be looking at them on the call. I have had a couple of times during this whole Zoom era, hosts and different people, you know, think the call is over and just put their phone down or put their laptop down and it's just recording and going. And I'm seeing, you know, just once a person just flipped the laptop, their iPad over, thinking, okay, our call is over, and they were the host. They never turned it off. So the entire time I could just see a table and hear the entire conversation in the room, and I hung up. I've had a couple of other instances like that. The problem with our computers and all of this shit is everything has a camera. You may think it's off, but if you don't double and triple check, you have to like log out and take things off your screen. He really listen, I don't know Jeffrey Toobin, but to me, this seems like one of those ones where it was just like, it was a midday. It was like, I'm going to bust one out real quick. I'm in my house. And so
I am not accusing him of anything. He is not Anthony Weiner. He did not, he's nothing deviant. But Zoom, when you work at home, it is your workplace. It is highly unprofessional, highly irresponsible, and I'm sorry, you're that desperate to fucking jerk off, go to the bathroom. It's just ridiculous. He's a grown-ass man. Stop. I mean, men need to relieve stress.
We don't just go to the bathroom.
Smoke
a
cigarette.
His little office.
Have a piece of cake.
You said the workplace, but he's a writer, right? So what I mean, so he's probably
he's not a writer. He knows the law. He's not stupid.
Right, but doesn't he write for the New Yorker? He's not an editor.
Yes. No, he writes. The point, look, but it doesn't matter. There were people on that call. Could you imagine? Imagine if someone was doing the Zoom call and their child walked in. I'm being dead serious.
It's horrible, but we also have to let people make a mistake and it be an accident without being like, you should have gone to another room in your house. Like, it's your home. People do it in every room. All
right. All I know is that I'm not saying that he has to be pilloried. I'm not saying that he has to lose his job forever. It just shows incredibly poor judgment.
Well, absolutely.
And as a woman who is on Zoom all the time, who has read articles about how women are getting chastised for not looking professional on their Zoom calls, I've read articles like female teachers need to look like they're actually in the classroom. Come on. He was on a call about the election. I'm not getting hot over this election. It's not an election. It's an election.
I just feel bad because to me
it's men acting poorly, and I'm tired of it.
But it was an accident. So I don't think
you don't accidentally jerk off.
Okay, you're jerking off to your computer. Clearly, I don't think he was on the Zoom call jerking off to them. Clearly, his camera was still on, and he was probably watching some porn, and he got busted. But,
no pun intended. Courtney, who is worse at technology than me? Think hard. Who is worse at technology than me? Can you think of anyone who's more stupid about it?
Most women do not. women, like I said, I think for y'all to masturbate, it's a little more
I'm not
involved.
talking about the masturbating. I'm
And
talking
men,
about
men, we're like cavemen. It's like, oh, look,
I
my
don't
dick
give a
is hard.
fuck.
Let me do something
Uncage
about
yourself.
it.
Here's the thing. Listen, here's the thing. He is a very intelligent man. He has been on Zoom now for 9 months. Really? Even I know how to turn the fucking camera off. I put on a bra before I teach my students. If I can do that, you can keep your fucking hands out of your pants, Jeffrey Toobin, and now you've become a joke. And actually the story has disappeared very quickly because luckily for him, I don't think he's a pervert. I just think he's a dumbass. He's a dumbass.
I don't think he's a pervert. I just think he fucked up.
He's a dumbass.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what it
anyway,
was. He fucked up.
Speaking of jerk off.
But can you imagine how mortified he must feel? Can you imagine?
I don't
Not
care.
only for people to be like, they saw you naked. It's just like past, they saw you naked.
But I was actually watching something, maybe The View or something, and Sunny Hostin said it actually could be a workplace issue. If it happens, once you're working. So it could be.
Yes,
they're
but
not
she also said we don't know. There are all these new rules. Like people are home, they can tell people because it is happening. People forgetting cameras on. You saw just a story. A teacher. Did you see that story in New York? The teacher found out this 18-year-old student was molesting a 7-year-old because it was
the camera was on.
The camera was on the 7-year-old's class, and there was a point where there was a little bit of a break, and she saw the 7-year-old. Performing oral sex on him, and she told all the other students to cut up their cameras, and she called the police and child services, and then the child told them it had been happening for a year, and that he told her to be quiet and not to tell her daddy. It's just like this crazy shit happening out there. So I'm more worried about that kind of shit than I am about Jeffrey Toobin. He'll be all right.
I'm not worried about. I'm just saying I'm tired as a society, and women are tired of fucking making excuses for dumbasses. I feel bad when my cat jumps into the Zoom call, which she does. She's looking at me right now. All right. Speaking of dumbasses and dicks, 50 Cent.
Oh Lord.
Okay.
I'm gonna let
so
you
50 Cent
Ice Cube. Let's lump them together. The 50 Cube.
Yes, 50 Cube, really. 50 Cube. So 50 Cent has endorsed Donald Trump. First off, who gives a fuck? Does he have a career anymore outside of Power, the show? Does he still have that show?
And he does. And he's got a bunch of shows. He's got shows on ABC. He's got a bunch of shows and stuff. But here's the thing. Can he vote in New York? Because he's a convicted felon here. Now, we one of the states where felons can vote?
Yeah, I think so. What's 50 a convicted felon of? What did he do? He got shot. I don't think he's the felon.
He didn't go to, wasn't he in jail before?
I don't know. But
Maybe
exactly.
Wrong.
I think he lives in Connecticut, actually. But the point is that 50 Cent has never said a word about anything about politics. 50 Cent is voting for Trump simply because of Joe Biden's tax plan, and he's misrepresenting that. So big surprise, a rich man is voting for voting for someone who's going to keep him rich. So he's desperately trying to stay relevant. I mean, I'm not saying if you're an artist, you shouldn't be politically engaged. You should be. You should use your voice for good instead of evil. But come on, 50. Come on. You're advocating for a man who's going to give the 1% of the 1% a tax break. Really?
Well, he is the 1%. Well, here's the thing.
His audience isn't.
I say this on this show all of the time. I'm going to keep saying it about him, about Cube, all of them. Stop getting your information, people, and listening to people and taking direction from people whose job it is to sell you things.
Yeah.
They have the answers for you. They have the advice for you for a low, low price. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, I would say, let's put it this way, I would agree with that, but also check their own record in terms of, have they ever spoken out before? Has Cube or 50 Cent ever made a political statement? Have they ever been engaged, or do they wait until the spotlight is on them 2 weeks before an election to suddenly drop a bomb out of nowhere?
Don't get your information from any celebrities, people. They all, what's the agenda? Look at your life,
no,
look at your friend's life, and figure out what's going on there, and that's how you make your decision.
No, I think that certain people have done the work, though. I mean, there are certain people who are well known who have, I mean, if you've done the work, if you've been someone who's been in the trenches doing the work, and you just happen to be famous, that's fine. I mean,
think that's great, but I also think for me, it really comes down to real life shit. It's not about, it's great that they've done the work. How is your life affected? How's your family's life affected? Your friends, what are you seeing on the ground? What happened? And I think that's how people have to start making their decisions.
Yeah, don't let them, but I'm saying they have I mean, Patti Smith has been doing some incredible stuff this year, but she's always been engaged. But anyway, so 50 Cent's an asshole. And the thing that's so funny is that he's so irrelevant that it isn't even bothering people that he said it. They're just like, oh yeah, him.
It is very like, oh yeah, him. It is kind of like, oh yeah, him.
I mean, not for nothing. Isn't this Kendrick Lamar's moment? Well, shouldn't this be Kendrick Lamar's moment? Like, he's the political guy. He's the smart political guy.
No, because I don't believe people have to come out and like, again, I think it's good sometimes celebrities who want to. That's great. I think that you should get your information from real life and what's happening in your life, and stop listening to all of these celebrities.
No, you're not. I'm agreeing with you, but what I'm saying is it's just very interesting to me.
No, I'm agreeing with you too. I'm just saying I'm not mad that Kendrick's not. Kendrick makes his points and says what he wants to say when he has something to say, not just because of the moment. And I appreciate that, because that to me comes off as more authentic rather than jumping into the fray because that's the
why doesn't he have something to say right now? I'm not saying he has to, but it's just interesting. It's interesting to me that at a heightened moment in this country with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, some people, it's just interesting. I'm not saying they have to. I just find it interesting that the guys who have made a lot of their cultural capital on being politically active are like, come on, like, do a PSA to vote. Do a PSA for voting. How's that?
Again, it comes back to my point of looking to people for, you know what I'm saying? Because you look and you would expect certain things and you don't see it. That's why I don't look for any of it.
I'm just disappointed. I would just like all citizens who have influence. But anyway, it was just a thought that occurred to me because our friend Miles Marshall Lewis has a book coming out about Kendrick Lamar. So I figured, all right, so Ice Cube. I got tired reading about it, but basically Ice Cube had some plan to save Black America. All right, I'm being sarcastic. Do you know more about it? Because I'm just going to be snarky. I don't want to.
I just don't give two shits.
Yeah. Well, I give two shits only because it's once again another diversion. He had some plan, most of which he says he reached out to the Biden camp, he reached out to the Trump camp. Most of what he was proposing is already in the Democratic platform, and the Trump camp responded and then rebranded it because, big surprise, it's Donald Trump. And I guess the objection is why is Ice Cube formulating policy when he has never done anything like this, number one. And number two, don't get into bed with the enemy. And Trump is the enemy. You cannot trust him. Full stop. You cannot trust him. So I think it's good intentions, but I don't know why people think Ice Cube has ever.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, it amazes me that people still view NWA as being a political group. It's like, really? Like, they did 2 songs about that, and the rest of it was smack women around, and Eazy-E was a Republican, and but Friday is a good movie, though. It's a really good movie. You agree, right? I love Friday. Anyway, what else is on your mind, my friend? What else is it just causes more fight, and it's also another reason to stay off social media because everybody's getting up on their high horse.
It's like I'm like a ghost. I'm not paying attention to anything. I already know what my votes are. I'm ready to just vote. Like, literally, when the political portions come on the news, I either turn the channel or I just mute it. I'm like, I can't. It's like watching a Catskills comedian and this other guy who's just like, who I just want to not fuck up before the election. I'm like, and that's a real hard way to go when you're going into election if that's the way I'm thinking about it. So I just need to get to October 24th. Let me cast my vote so I can just mentally move on until the night of the 3rd when we figure out what's going to happen.
I think it's or the morning of the 4th or the 5th or the 6th.
Right.
It's going to be exhausting. All right, what else is yanking your chain, as my grandfather would say? Anything else in your mind, Glenn?
The Jets suck. The Giants suck.
All right, I'm
gonna make a bold prediction. The Knicks are gonna suck.
Wait, hold on. I'm laying back in the cut here. Go.
Right. A bold prediction. The Knicks will probably suck. So yeah, all of our teams suck.
No, Courtney, how dare you?
I know. Can you believe it? It's like we're supposed to have hope and glory, but it's like they'll suck. We just suck.
Let me tell you something. The Knicks are so bad. All our teams, I mean, the Yankees at least made it to the make-believe World Series. Almost.
Right.
Almost. We'll take it at that point. New York teams are so bad that they literally could come up with a cure for COVID, and people would go, yeah, I don't want it. It's from that team. It sucks.
Right. You know.
James Dolan is giving out checks and COVID cures. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not fucking with him.
James Dolan. It probably sucks, and and I'll take the first round draft pick, Dolan, over your COVID vaccine. No, it's just absolute. All
right, let's get to the fun stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. Wait a minute, I'm fluffing my hair. Okay, go. Now, if I were on a Zoom call right now, I'd be fluffing my hair.
And I actually do have on a bottom today for the first time in a long time. Usually when we're doing these curls early in the morning, I could be naked, but
I don't need that visual.
But I'm wearing a sarong and a cute top. But that's a whole other
funny thing is, I'm too stupid to even figure out the Zoom background stuff, so my students actually see my background. And I have a couple of my platinum records on the wall, and they're all like, Professor, what is that? And I'm like, that little thing.
Sweetie, that just shows you that I'm fierce and I'm a genius. Thanks a lot. Do you want one of those one day? Then motherfucking listen to me.
And then the cat jumps into the call, and they're like, it's Spoonie. How's Spoonie doing today? And I'm like, Spoonie never got to go to school, so she's going to school.
They know Spoonie's name?
Oh, of course. Actually, last Friday, this is so ridiculous. So one of my classes, it was, it's like whatever. They're very nice kids. And one of the girls, her audio didn't work, so she types in the chat, how did Spoonie get her name? How did your cats get their names? And so I was like, okay, we're really not into learning today, are we? So I told them the derivation of their names. Anyway, continue. I'm a professor, yes.
So we started talking about, Amy and I are always talking about different albums, blah, 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 what we like, classics, just going through rediscovering shit, because we're just, listen, I came to an epiphany the other day. It's like, I don't hate a lot of the music of today. It's just, some of it is not that distinctive, and I do think there are some talented people, but I'm waiting for them to make that record that really kind of establishes them and breaks them out from the pack.
Right.
And we started really talking about great debut albums that we love. And, there's always the usuals, right? We could sit here and talk about Pet Shop Boys or Michael Faith or Nas, all of that forever. And I was like, well, what are some of the other ones that, deserve a revisit? And we both started getting really excited. You start digging in and playing these records, and you realize some of them still sound so fresh and why they need their flowers now. So we kind of came up with a list of some of our favorite debuts.
And I would think it's also like our favorites, and also, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I cannot remember a record, the debut record from when I was a kid or, something. But it was more that sense, and it was kind of sort of precipitated. I called you up and I said, I've been listening to that first Seal record.
Yeah.
And you went, oh my God, like you're the third person who says that. And that's one of the good things about
two other people have said to me, yo, for some reason I started playing Seal again, and it's like you forget about how great those early out. First of all, he's great, but those first three albums are really spectacular, and that first album is just killer. It's so good.
And I was telling you that back when I had a career, I remember being sent the advance tape because the record came out in 1991. And I remember being sent the advance tapes. Remember those, Courtney? Advance tapes?
Yeah.
And anyway, so I'm walking up Lafayette Avenue because the publicist for the record was somebody who, I used to love it when publicists would go, I'm not going to waste your time with this. You're not going to like it. But when he would then say, this is something I think you're really going to dig.
So, they used to be really honest about it. They let you know, listen, I need you to do this for me. And then there were the ones that you just knew everybody was really excited about.
I'm not going to send you the new Wilco record, Amy, because you don't give a fuck about them. But I am going to send you Seal. So I was walking up Lafayette Avenue and listening to it on my headphones, and I literally, almost stopped in my tracks because I know dance music, I know black music, I know all sorts of different, I'm not new to this. But I have never really heard anything. The combination of Trevor Horn, who, of course, we all knew from Art of Noise, which those songs stand up, and Seal's voice, which was, very, very, it was like feminine and masculine at the same time. And those beats, I mean, Crazy, you can play Crazy today, and it has not aged. And so I started playing the record again, and I was like, there's not one moment on that record that doesn't sound like it could have been done today. And it was funny because, in the apartheid of record companies, they tried to work him. They really didn't work him black, which means that they didn't have the black music department working the record at all.
It's a mistake that they've made with a bunch of black artists. Who may not have swung as traditional R&B. And if you don't, and sometimes, especially if you start pop, and this is what used to happen back in the day when I was at the label. If you started a black artist pop and not black, it was hard. The black department didn't usually come back around and say, we'll get the next one. It was kind of like, well, they're a pop artist.
Yeah, that's what they did with him. And it was funny because I told you the story before. I interviewed him, and I met him, and he was just nice as pie, right? And he had dreads, and he was wearing Jordans, and he was wearing basketball. He was all decked out in Jordan. He wanted to go to West 4th Street to hoop it up, and he was like, blah, 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 blah. Cut to 2 years later, I interview him again, and he's staying at the Royalton, and he's got the shorter hair, and he's wearing bespoke suits, and he had just come back from skiing. I'm like, what happened here?
He was like, I'll tell you what happened. The pop checks, honey. The pop checks. They didn't want me a black music. They took me a pop, and that got me the worldwide fame.
It worked. No, but it was just so funny. But no, great record. I mean, just stands up. And what was so ridiculous is that after about, I think, the second record, because everybody knows Kiss from a Rose, beautiful song, but he's more than that one song. And what happened was there had been this story that he didn't want to work with Trevor Horn anymore because he didn't need Trevor Horn. And then all of a sudden they're like, the label's like, you kind of do, Seal, need Trevor Horn. And so they worked together, I think, for 3 albums. So what's an album that we can bounce back and forth? We'll play bouncy ball. So what's an album you kind of came up in your memory bank?
Well, I'm going to give my flowers to my first set of flowers to a black woman who I feel like should have her flowers because she's still here. And that would be Cheryl Lynn. In her first studio album, Cheryl Lynn, on Columbia. She put out 6 albums on Columbia. And this first album is the self-titled record that has Got to Be Real on it and Star Love. But there's also amazing songs on there like You're the One and Give My Love to You and You Saved the Day. I mean, just her vocals. First of all, Cheryl Lynn is a singer. People forget. You go back into that catalog and you remember Encore and these things. There's also Shake It Up Tonight and just a lot of great songs. And her voice is really just amazing on this album. And she worked with like David Foster and Ray Parker Jr., Marcus Miller's worked with her. Luther Vandross has produced a full album of hers. And here's the thing. If you go into the Luther Vandross producing sort of oeuvre, you will notice he did not fuck around with anybody who could not really sing. if he worked with you, you could really sing. And just, I think she deserves a lot more respect. And that first album deserves a revisit because those vocals are absolutely amazing. They're perfect. And it was a great introductory record to an artist who has several classics that will still fill up a dance floor around the world. There's not a wedding reception that you go to. If you don't play Got to Be Real, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're Asian, I don't care if you're Latinx. You put on Got to Be Real and people sing and dance, young, old, and in between.
All right. I'm going to combine them. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is the Psychedelic Furs debut album, which is called Psychedelic Furs. Came out in 1980. So I had just moved back to New York, and I was like working. Where was I working? I was working in clubs. I was working in some clubs, and working in and hanging out at the Peppermint Lounge. That record, like we were joking around saying there's the A&R rule when you're listening to something new, you give it 20 seconds. If you don't like it within 20 seconds, you're like, fuck it, and you turn it off.
Right.
What's amazing about the Psych Furs is that the opening track, India, is basically this gradually growing drone. There is no vocal, there is no instrument. It's one, like a guitar, kind of growing and growing until it just explodes into the opening track. And you are mesmerized by that song. And that song, they played it in the clubs, they played it on the radio. They are just, British post-punk band. Again, people know them from Pretty in Pink and Love My Way, which are wonderful classic songs. But the first Psych Furs record, it just doesn't sound dated.
And I love the cover art. I love the way they're shot.
Yeah, it's a really, really good record. And the other one I was going to throw in.
Font.
Style?
The font. Yeah, the style of font with their name. I just thought the art direction was really good. Yeah,
they were they had the saxophone, they had those kind of droning post-Johnny Lydon vocals, that kind of British drony thing. And the other record, and then I'll bounce it back to you, and this is way, I was a kid when this record came out, but I remember the first time I heard it, which is the debut Roxy Music record, which is 1972, so I was like a little, I was like not checking for Roxy Music in 1972. Though I am cool enough that, but I had seen them, you see them. I have friends of mine in London or in England who said when Roxy Music played Top of the Pops and did Virginia Plain, that they literally can remember the moment where they were, because it was like, and, I hope I don't have to sell people on the glories of Roxy Music, but this sort of sets the template for what they were like for the first three albums. Avant-garde, great songwriting, talk about style. They had more people doing the art direction on their albums than were actually in the band.
Right.
But just classic art rock, with great songs, and with Brian Ferry when he was still kind of doing that Monster Mash voice of his. So it's a classic record that, again, still sounds good. Take it, Courtney.
So I'm going to once again go to the roots of dance music and give these three women their flowers, because I feel like they've been lost in the conversation of great dance music. And that is Joanne Thomas, who passed away, Renee Washington, and Sherry Williams, formerly known as Jomanda.
Oh, wow.
Jomanda.
Look at you. Wow.
It was a dance music trio from New Jersey. Fun fact that I'm sure all of our Jersey listeners know, and if you're of a certain age in New York that you know, and you're in the house music scene, yes, people give a lot of credit to, between New York and Chicago, when it comes to house music. But there are a lot of people who came from Jersey, like Adiva and different people. Jersey has and had a really vibrant house music scene, very vibrant house music clubs that people would go to back in the day, like Zanzibar. And these three were from Jersey. And his album, Someone to Love Me, which came out in 1990, was amazing. And it has bona fide club classics on it. It's the roots of house music. Back when it was just give me a beat, give me some girls who can sing or guys who can sing, some harmonies. Not like today where everything has to have, that big drop in the middle and the spin and the this and the that.
What year did the record come out? Do you know?
1990. 1990.
Okay.
And, it contains Make My Body Rock, which is a bona fide club classic. Don't You Want My Love, which is a club classic. And probably the song they're best known for radio-wise because it crossed the top 40, Gotta Love For You, and True Meaning of Love. And it's just an amazing dance record. It still sounds great. It's classic house music. Vocally, it's great. And, Jamanda used to rock the clubs, and they would perform, and they could dance, and they could sing, and we would dance. And, I put that record on over the weekend, and I was in here cleaning the house just singing and being like, wow, remembering all those days in New York City clubs back when it wasn't about tables and all of that shit. It was like bodies pressed up against each other dancing, and it's just good music, good dance music. Solid, no fuss, no frills dance.
Thank you for that. All right. Is the flower thing a reference to The Bachelor? I've never watched The Bachelor. Is that The Bachelor? Did they give him flowers? I've never watched it.
Saying giving somebody their flowers is an expression to say you're giving them their gratitude. You're giving them their praise while they're still here, because a lot of times we wait for people to pass away, and then, they're all of the tributes like, oh, they were so great. They were so wonderful. And so,
like the kid said, yo, I'm giving you your props. Okay.
Yeah.
What the young people say these days. All right. So 1991. Once again, I'm a working journalist. I'm a music critic. So I have like sort of an inbred allergy to hype. If everybody's talking about it, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Once again, advanced cassette tape. Walking around, Massive Attack, Blue Lines, 1991. Has not aged, Courtney. You know this.
Let me just say something. I still play that record. I love that. A great group whose influence outweighed their commercial viability, at least in this country. But Unfinished Sympathy, Safe from Harm, Daydreaming.
Yeah. What I loved about them
Lately is my shit. Oh my God, I love that album.
They were, combining hip hop and trip hop, and ambient. They fused dub. There was, Horace Andy, who was a singer unknown to a lot of Americans because reggae is much more embedded in the culture in England. Just their version of Be Thankful for What You Got, a reworking of that. Again, it's one of those records.
Their version of Light My Fire.
Yeah. Just they were, the rumor has always been that Banksy is either one of those guys or is Massive Attack affiliated. That's always been the rumor.
And it would make sense, you know what I mean? If you really, aesthetically, if you think about it, it's like, that doesn't sound ridiculous.
Because these guys they're from Bristol, which is outside of London, and connected with Massive Attack. Watch this segue I'm going to do here. Connected with Massive Attack and often credited as being the mother of trip hop is Nena Cherry, whose debut Raw Like Sushi came out in 1989. And she's best known, obviously, and she still does it in concert. You and I saw her do that with Bill Coleman at National Sawdust. Mm-hmm. Buffalo Stance was the hit, but the whole album it was sexy. It definitely gave you London at the time, New York.
And she had other hits on the album, Kisses on the Wind and stuff, but it seems like here in the U.S., whenever they play anything, they only go back to Buffalo Stance.
Right. But she's as much a product of New York as she is of London, as she is of Sweden, as she is of the avant jazz scene in L.A. because of her dad, Don Cherry.
And she grew up here part of the time.
Yeah, so, in Long Island. Long Island City. So you definitely hear the New York City club scene, the hip hop scene, the trip hop scene, the everything scene, and it's a sexy, honest, it's just again, you put it on, and it hasn't aged. All right. Before I continue talking about, we talk about debut albums. All right, so we record this on Google Voice, and yesterday the DOJ announced that it's going to file an antitrust suit against Google Voice. Now, normally I'm like, anything Bill Barr does, I'm against it, but Elizabeth Warren and Bill Barr believe in this and in the antitrust thing. And I will say, Courtney and I having now spent 20 minutes trying to connect our Google Voice call, I'm like,
in the middle of our taping. We were in the middle.
Right.
In the middle of a sentence, talking about Nana Turner. It's like,
and this happens every week, Sir Jai, or whatever your name is, who runs Google. So Courtney and I, Democrats, progressives, hater of Bill Barr, say, bring the suit on, motherfucker. Bring it on. Well, and now we get cut off. And now we're going to get cut off again.
Now back to your Nana point. The thing that worked with that album was it had a flavor. It had a New York flavor. I mean, she went on to work with, Biggie worked with her on her next album. It had a London flavor. It had an international. It was the perfect mashup of everything. And I think she was one of the first hip hop artists who was doing a rap sing thing, because she would sing and rap on her records. There was somebody else singing her hooks. She was singing her hooks.
Angie Stone did that with Sequence, didn't she? But you're right.
Sequence was a full hip hop group. That wasn't a singing group at all. They were a rap group.
Yeah, but the thing about Nana, she crossed she was R&B, she was hip hop, she was alternative, she was dance. You could hear the New York, you could hear the London. It was like Massive Attack, like it was a record of that moment, but yet it was a record of that moment that still works. Yeah, Buffalo Sanson's a big hit, still sounds great. She has not. Well, we love her, but she has not made a bad record. I mean, Homebrew, oh my God. I mean, her follow-up.
Homebrew is amazing.
Amazing. But she has never made a bad record, and this really established her. It was a great image. Everything was great about it. Keeping with women, I'm going to talk about Reese, How I Do, which I think was like, I don't know, 94, maybe 95. Reese put out a second record after that, not as good. The record was written by Shanti White, a.k.a. Santa Gold. Reese kind of came out of the Philly roots kind of scene. Not roots like in roots music, the roots scene. Golden Boys, Ice King, another record that was screwed up by a label because they, in the reverse, they decided to work her black. If she had been white, this would have been like a really great rock kind of alternative record. There are R&B flavor and hip hop flavors, but they kind of screwed it up too. But it's another record that I could play all the time, and it never sounds old to me.
She was supposed to be a big deal too, They were really. It's maddening when you see that happen of an artist where you really see the talent and you get it, but the color of your skin, they're like, all right. Especially back then, it'd be like, well, it's this or it's this.
But it's also, and it's funny because Sean, I think two things happened. First off, I think once it became known that Shanti had written a lot of music, it kind of took the shine off the fact that this was like her stuff, though I'm sure she contributed. And her second and third record didn't have as strong songwriting, but it was that she was black, that she was a black woman artist, but it was all, you couldn't pinpoint the sound, and people want to be able to go, it's a this, it's a that, it's a this, and you couldn't pinpoint it, and that made it really, really difficult for her. But I go back and listen to that record all the time. All right, what's your next one?
My next one is, I love how we're like I'm just stuck in the 80s, right? My next one is Jill Jones' debut album, Jill Jones on Paisley Park.
Okay.
This album, to me, out of all, Prince had a lot of proteges, as we all know. Prince produced a lot of protege albums. Most of them are shit, as we all know. But, when you're a Prince fan, you have your favorites, right? as a Prince fan, we all love the Vanity 6 album, but if we're honest, the Vanity 6 album's not great. There's Nasty Girl, there's If a Girl Answers, Don't Hang Up, but the singing is not great. And then you've got like Apollonia 6 where, Sex Shooter makes that a moment. But the Jill Jones album stands out to me as the one where this album is the most cohesive as an album that he's done for his proteges, with really good songs, great singing, great sequencing. It's an out of print album, so you can't even stream it. You're gonna have to look it up on like YouTube or find it online. The MP3 copies that people have ripped floating out there. But
what happened to her? Did she have any
she's
kind
still
of?
around. Jill's
right.
still around, and I believe she was, I'm friends with her on Facebook. I saw that she just posted that she just finished doing an interview. Netflix is doing a Prince documentary, and I hear they're speaking to all of the real people, and it's supposed to be the real deal, and she's been interviewed. Because, she was with Prince from...
Do you know who's doing the documentary? Any of the people behind it? Do you know who it is?
I don't remember, but it is somebody. It is people who are. It's somebody of note, I believe. But yeah,
it's probably Alan Leeds, his former manager. I'm sure has something to do with that. That's great, though.
But Jill has been around and she's put out music sporadically through the years. But this album is, to me, some of the best Prince writing and songs outside of his own catalog. And I was in college when this album came out, and I just remember the first single, Mia Boca, which is amazing to me. I love that song. And Prince had a big fight with MTV. It was a big point of contention with them not wanting to play this video, and he's like, they spent a lot of money on it. It's a John Baptiste Mondino video, and he's like, we have this video, we have this song, and this was part of that fight of MTV not playing black artists, and he stood up and fought for this video. And I believe it hit more in Europe because, again, the U.S. and especially in 1987, if it didn't have a certain kind of sound, radio was just not existent for it. But to me, it is a star jewel in the Prince protege sort of canon that people should look at. And then I moved to 1989 to a moment. I'm still in college. And I'm the music director of the school
radio. I'm giving birth in 1989. The entire year of 1989.
I'm the music director of the school college station. And I get this advanced copy of this album called Affection by this lady named Lisa Stansfield. And I'm like, what's this?
Wait a minute. That was 1989?
That is 1989.
All right, she turns to her CD collection to find the album. Wait a minute. Hold on. That's fucking mind-blowing. 1990. 89 and 89, 90. The single came out 89, the album 1990. Amazing. Well,
remember, the single came out 89. The album came out 89 in the UK, 90 in America.
In America. Wow.
It was, listen.
Wow.
I think most people been around all around the world, and we love that. Dig into all of the jewels of that album. Because there are many, you know what I mean? You can't deny it. This is the right time. Live together. What did I do to you? I mean, it is just, we all have that.
Mighty Love.
We all get that moment of, when it's like a white British singer who has that sort of soulful voice and everybody jumps on it, and there's like a million black singers with that same voice in the U.S. who, are not getting the same shine. But I think why we loved Lisa was, one, she's the real deal. She wasn't a puppet. She co-wrote all of those songs. So it wasn't like she was just this girl with a voice and a producer who said, I have an idea. Like, that was pure her. And when she came here, they worked her at Black Radio and worked her on the Black Circus. She did shows.
I saw her on Soul Train. They not Soul Train. She was Donnie Simpson. They used to play that around the world, been around the world video on whatever Donnie Simpson's show was.
Video Soul, absolutely. Right. And she went to Showtime at the Apollo. She did all of that stuff. It wasn't like, all right, well, we're gonna take her pop. And I think because she came at the same time, did the black stuff at the same time she did the pop stuff. Black, you get the props from it. And because we know that you co-wrote these songs and stuff, you're not like some puppet with a voice where a producer was like, I have an idea. She got that acceptance. And that album is still brilliant. It still sounds great. I think people should dig that out again, especially during these, as we're moving into these winter months. It's good when it's colder. It's good driving in California down PCH.
I interviewed her, I think, for this album and the second album, and what I loved about her was, she's like super nice. She's like a broad, you know what I mean? Like she's a broad. She was staying at the Algonquin, which I thought was so fucking old school New York, because everybody at that time was staying at like Royalton and the Paramount, and she was like, I'm going to stay at the Algonquin, and I was like, you're amazing. And then I saw her actually in San Francisco, and she could turn it out live. This was not a studio act. I mean, and she was giving homage to Barry White, who was not cool at that point in a lot of ways. I mean, so I love, she's cool. And one of the many artists who's one of the few artists to do an album with Babyface that never did anything, which is weird. Right. And Clive Davis destroyed her career because she wouldn't kowtow to what he wanted. So, Team Lisa. I'm going to finish it up. Speaking of white people that black people like, other than me, of course. Lewis Taylor. Lewis Taylor, Bittersweet, 1996. So I found out about Lewis Taylor because our friends Barney Hoskins and Mark Pringle, who run the fantastic site Rock Back Pages. I was writing for a magazine they both worked on. And because, like you, I'm an Anglophile, I was like, hey, what's really good in England right now? What should I be listening to in England? And they went, Lewis Taylor. I'm like, ooh, what's he like? And they went, if Marvin Gaye was a guitarist. And I went, huh.
You're like, that's interesting enough to make me say, I can't even picture what that would be. So
right. If Marvin Gaye was like, could play the hell out of an electric guitar. Now, Lewis Taylor is not Marvin Gaye, but the vocals give you that thing. So the Lewis Taylor record, Bittersweet, it was never released in the United States, and then finally it did come out. He was one of those guys, he came out of prog rock, of all things. Very much a function of the studio, because I did see him live in 2005, and I gotta say it was kind of disappointing.
Really?
Yeah, I had been looking. I mean, he was good, but you could see he was also like a reluctant performer. He was not somebody who was super into performing. He was a studio rat.
Because you got to be into it. Like, you see somebody who's up there who's kind of half doing it. That really shows on stage.
You could just tell that he wasn't like he was more of an artist than a performer. Right. But great songs. Bittersweet is the first one. It fell into that whole sort of like acid jazz, neo, I don't know what the hell they were fucking calling it, but I know, whatever. But, great vocals, great guitar playing, great songs, Bittersweet, Whoever's the Love of Your Life. The second album is also great. So he really never got a proper U.S., but he was culty, you know what I mean? It was one of those things you'd go Lewis Taylor, oh yeah, Lewis Taylor, you know? So but he's disappeared. He's like sort of like put out his last record and is working.
Is the record still in print? Is it one of the ones that can people stream it?
Everything's in print. Everything's in print. Everything's on Spotify. But he literally just disappeared off the face of the earth. You know. He pulled the Bobby Gentry. You know, Bobby Gentry is very much alive. Bobby Gentry. She quit in the '80s, got married, and we think she lives in the LA area, someplace with her family or something. But she stopped performing, and you have not seen her publicly since. I think with Lewis Taylor, again, it was one of these, and then they discovered this thing called the Lost Album, which was an album he had made before he went in this direction, which was sort of California folk rocky, which was interesting. I just think he's one of those guys who was very talented and had that moment.
Wasn't comfortable with the spotlight and all of the other shit.
He's very happy going back to doing whatever the fuck he was doing beforehand. You know, All right. Shall we wrap this up?
Well, one more.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up with one that made me fall in love, and I think deserves another listen. They had bigger hits as they went along, but this is the one that started all. Bananarama, Deep Sea Skiving, which came out in 1983.
I was very worried that we had gone an entire show without you bringing up a British girl group. I was starting to get nervous. I was wondering if you had a fatal disease or something.
No, it's here. It's here. It's an amazing record, and I think if people go back and listen to it again, it's like you have I can never say say it right. Their first single they recorded in Swahili for no reason. They don't speak Swahili, and when they do interviews now and they say, we don't know why we recorded this song in Swahili. We had to learn it phonetically. We to this day don't know why that first single was in Swahili. And then that also has Shy Boy, and he was really saying something, and nah, 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 hey, 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 kiss him goodbye. It's a great, great record to three girls who became unlikely stars. And if you really think about it, of all of the female groups at the time, they weren't trying to be sexy. They were like jumping around in overalls, but they had great songs, and those songs still hold up to this day, and this album still holds up to this day. It is a great debut.
They kind of gave you a white TLC vibe in their outfit.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, here we are. And the fact that at that time, that British group got to have worldwide success. They had a number one here before they had a number one at home. You know, so it's a quite interesting thing. All right,
then, of course, and then Siobhan went on to do Shakespeare's Sister, who you and I love.
Love. Yeah. All right, kids. So we come to an end of another show. We want to thank you guys for listening. Remember to follow our podcast network, Listening Party Presents Online. Follow them also at Listening Party Podcast on IG. Follow us on IG at ImmaLetYouFinish NY. Follow us on Twitter at Finish Imma. Follow us on our Facebook page. We're really active. We're there a lot at ImmaLetYouFinish, all one word. And guys,
Courtney,
this is a really important season, guys. You got to vote. Really, this is vote like your life depends on it. I honestly feel like it does. Wear a mask. Listen, no one likes to wear a mask. No one likes it. When I see the people screaming, it's like, yeah, I'm wearing a mask. I can't fucking breathe in that bitch. I don't like it, but I'm going to wear a mask. And wash it. The fact that we have to give people instructions on how to wash their hands, Amy, in 2020, I'm like, you have to tell people how to wash their hands?
I mean, not for nothing. I have found out that I didn't wash my hands as much as I thought. But I just want to point something out before we leave, Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't masturbate this entire show. Aren't you proud of me?
I might have masturbated during the break when we couldn't get logged back in.
And with that, peace out.
Peace out. We're tubing.
Bye.
At Baker's, no matter where you order free pickup, you get the same great deals as you'd get in store. So you can save when you order during band practice, or at the dog park, or wherever. Start your cart with the Baker's app and save from wherever today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. $35 order minimum. Restrictions may apply. Subject to availability.
Get more ways to save at the Buy 5 or More Save $1 each sale. Just buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's fantasypoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. Fantasypoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.